You're listening to Sarah Talk. It's political.
You could run a fucking pet rock against Donald Trump, and I would vote for the pet rock.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right
Yeah.
Critical.
One of the things that drives me nuts as an atheist is that my polling location is at a church. And I don't necessarily have a problem. I'm not going to like burst into flames walking into a church.
After being on this show and having heard your viewpoints on some things, my advice to you is don't test this. I won't burst into flames.
And positively LGBT positive.
In many states, you can still be evicted from housing simply for being gay or transgender. Stand and fight with us.
Oh, and occasionally completely absurd.
I don't know if you've ever seen a lightning bug, but he flies around with a flame of light coming out of his behind. The lightning bug got a flame coming out of his butt.
It's a beautiful night tonight. All the sodomites are out.
And now, from Orlando, Florida, your host, Sarah Austin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sarah Talk. I'm Sarah Austin. We have a full house in the studio tonight.
How full?
Tell me
That full. Oh, if you're watching with us on the Facebook Live, thank you for joining us. In the studio tonight, we have, of course, the lovely Becca.
Hey.
We have Michael Kaplan.
Yeah.
And Brandon Taylor in the house.
Holy crap, that's me.
Oh my
Right.
God, Brandon, you actually made it.
I know.
Surprise, surprise.
Are you done shaming Brandon for not coming last time?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
Says the two whores who were like texting me, where are you? Are you here yet? Hurry up. Have we not learned from Starbucks? I can't just go anywhere and wait outside. So I have to come exactly on time.
Whoa.
Wow.
Listen, you are always welcome
Wow.
at my house. You wouldn't have had to wait outside.
Thank you, Becca.
6:48.
Yeah, Michael knocked on the door and I went, damn, bitch is early.
Okay. So
I did.
So listen, we have a lot going on to the show tonight. We have a couple of interviews for the live show. So we're going to talk to Will Mason here in just a moment, who has a really great children's book out and is doing some cool stuff with some schools. And in the second segment of the show, we're going to talk to a representative from the Original Motto Project, which is trying to return In God We Trust back to E Pluribus Unum, out of many one. So that's the live show today. And then we've got a little, maybe kind of a surprise segment at the end, a news story that kind of ties into some of that at the end of the show. And then, because we're going to be out of town again, sorry, no live show next week. Because we're going to be out of town after the live show tonight, then we're going to cut the stream and record next week's show. So it's going to be a long night, guys. Thanks for coming.
Oh my god.
All right,
She
so
didn't tell you that beforehand. She told
no,
me.
I don't warn.
Where are you going?
We're going away.
Somewhere?
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But are you coming back?
I'm not telling you people.
I just want to know if you're coming
I don't
back.
want anybody following me. This is a vacation.
Well, no, if you're not going to come back, then I'm going to throw a party in your house. I just wanted to know more. Just wanted to be aware.
Listen, just because I said you were welcome anytime. There's parameters of that, sir.
All right, The Boy with the Rainbow Heart is a beautiful story about a young boy who turns the town of Gray into the town of Shine. It's a story of love, kindness, authenticity, and acceptance. Author Will Mason joins us on the line now to tell us more. Will, welcome to Sarah Talk.
How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for having me, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more about my sister and my family and about the boy.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really great book. And I think we can all agree that there's kind of a general lack of diversity in children's books, though that is changing, and thanks to books like this. But like, I looked at the bookshelf of that our kids have, right? And they have some newish books, but they also have books that were my books from when I was a kid. And there's a lot of problematic examples. There's one book in particular that made me cringe really hard all these years later. It was a book about daddies, and it was just drenched in these 1950s gender roles. It was like some daddies wear ties, and some daddies wear hard hats, and like some daddies work here and some daddies work there. But it was all this toxic, outdated gender norm stuff, and it was never some daddies do things outside of that old misogynist male gender expectation.
Some daddies at the end of the night put on a wig and go on stage.
And you know what's funny though? It's you'd think that we would have a really drastic change in terms of the children's lit scene that's available for children across the schools, really across the entire United States. And yes, although we don't see those stereotypical, dad that's a white guy carrying a briefcase, that talks so abruptly kind of in that image.
Mm-hmm.
We do, like, all the books. I mean, the majority of the books still today, the ones that publishers take on, they deem marketable, that are white characters and that are, that look like, upper class suburban children. And they do that because they're marketable and because it's all based on sales.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they don't have those typical, really in your face, white guy from the 50s themes, the inadvertent messages that they show with the characters that they still use is completely relevant still today. And it's something that, in my opinion, really needs to change in a sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's back to this book that I'm thinking of from my childhood. There was one page that was like, some daddies are white, some daddies are brown, some daddies are yellow, some daddies are red. And I was like, throw this book away. Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. What's the title of that? What's the book?
I don't think we even have it anymore. I think we got rid of
it. Hold on, I'll do some Googling.
Yeah, we'll see if we can figure that out.
Oh my gosh.
So you have a background in social work. How have those experiences influenced your passion to spread this message of hope and love and inclusivity?
Yeah, so I would say that was a significant influence on the creation of The Boy with the Rainbow Heart. I was trained to be a school social worker. I did a couple years at the University at Buffalo in their MSW program, and I interned at a Buffalo public school, a city school that we have here, the Dr. Lydia T. Wright School, which is, obviously a very diverse school. And then I also interned at a suburban school district in a wealthier area in Williamsville, Country Parkway Elementary. And so in those experiences, I'd work with a lot of youth on a lot of different issues, and definitely LGBTQ youth, and even kids that felt different, that, you could tell that they had rainbow hearts. They might not even understand it quite yet, but, it's clear who they are. And so anyways, it kind of sprung from that, coupled with the experiences that I saw my sister dealing with growing up as being an openly gay early teenager. But yeah, the social work experience and seeing that there was a lack of children's books that represent the LGBTQ community, because when I'd be working with these, it wasn't a ton of kids, but there were a few kids. And I would look for in the school library, or even on Google to order a book, and there really wasn't a lot. And this was a few years ago, and there's actually been a lot of positive movement with children's lit for LGBTQ representation. But even 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was some, but it wasn't great. And so that kind of opened my eyes, damn, these kids don't have the representation that they deserve and need. And we're we're in the progressive age. You'd think that schools would just be jam-packed with diverse representation for all cultures, genders, sexual, identities, all that stuff. So that was going through that and seeing that I wasn't those resources weren't readily available for me to work with these little kids that I was working with. That was a big eye opener for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, but because children's lit is a little different, but you would think that just literature in general should be ahead of, the movement, ahead of the social.
Yeah. Actually, you would think that 100% with, and I'm I wasn't a psychology or psychiatry or anything like that, but everybody, it's common sense if you're basically educated that, child development, those are hugely important years for getting messages of acceptance and to be who you are. And there's not enough of that messaging going on in the children's lit scene. Yeah. And what I mentioned earlier, a lot of that I think has to do with marketability and sales from these major publishers, that Scholastic, HarperCollins, all of these ones that have these contracts with school districts across really America, but the globe. They're not. I mean, sometimes you see books like the one with the one where they made fun of Mike Pence, the Rabbit book.
Yeah.
And that is so awesome. And I can't praise Chronicle Books enough for taking on that LGBTQ book and really pushing that. And look at it. It's a bestseller. It's like the #1 children's book right now. It's unbelievable.
Right. It's a day in the life of Marlon Bundo.
Thank you.
So great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
And what, the charitable giving that they did along with that, I think was great.
Absolutely. They partnered with the, I don't know, did they give 100% of proceeds to the Trevor Project?
Yeah, it was something like that. I can't remember if it was 100% or not.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So great.
Yeah.
So take us to the book and talk about your sister. Take us from kind of concept to creation, and how did this story come to life?
Yeah, so I guess to give an overview of how it all came to be, I'll start by painting like a picture of what my sister and really what my family was like growing up. Probably not all that different from a lot of people and a lot of kids that are LGBTQ themselves. My mom specifically, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but she's a different person today. But back in the day, this was more than 20 years ago at this point, in the early 90s and late 90s, she was very, our household was very religious. It was very structured. And, Jessica had always been kind of, she's always been very eccentric, and it was very clear that Jessica was gay. Obviously, being her younger brother by a few years, I wasn't really aware. But a good example that I've been using recently is my first experience with the LGBTQ population, and I hope this comes across as sincere. I'm just trying to paint a picture of like what it was like for my sister growing up. My first experience with my family was we were driving home from a Toronto Blue Jays game. Buffalo is about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from Toronto. So we went up to Canada and we went to a Toronto Blue Jays game. And on the way back, we got caught in a massive traffic jam. And that was because we were driving through the city of Toronto during Toronto's Gay Pride Parade. And, it's funny, knowing my parents and knowing my mom, that was, it sounds silly, but that was a really scary thing for them. They had no idea that was on the horizon. And it's funny, I have this distinct memory of my mom rolling up the window because it was really hot and the AC in our minivan was broken. And she rolled up the window when these proud people were kind of like marching through and just kind of like being themselves and being happy. And she kind of like rolled up the window and acted like very nervous. And my dad was nervous. And the reason I bring that up is because it sounds silly in hindsight, but thinking back and thinking, about Jessica and where she was at in her adolescence, and that must have been a really painful thing for her to see my family react that way. And I just feel like I should highlight that because I feel like that might happen to other kids today where, families might not overtly say something like, being gay is wrong, but they might do things like that send the messages to my sister that it's something that she should fear or something that she shouldn't be. And then, coupling that with the fact that we were religious and my mom, when my mom found out that she was gay, my mom had she had your prototypical meltdown, like screaming, crying, really traumatic for my sister. And actually Jessica was kicked out of the house for a little bit. And wow. Yeah, it's crazy. It's because, I say that I've said this story now, which is of seeing what Jessica went through and going through the social work program. That really was the reason that The Boy with the Rainbow Heart was created, because it sucked so bad seeing what she went through. But after sharing this story, like with these different groups that I've talked to, or if I go talk to a school or I go talk to families or whatever it is, Jessica's not alone. There's so many people, adults, that like come up to me and they're like, you know what? I had the same like horrible experience. It was really traumatic. So Jessica had a really tough time. But she got married. She was married actually for 11 years. She's actually just recently divorced, but she was married proudly to another woman, Sandy, and they had 2 beautiful daughters. Jessica had them biologically. And so, this was, God, we made this book. We started on this like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. But it was after seeing that my sister's kids, Dara and Alana, they started getting bullied for having 2 gay moms. And so, like, after seeing that, and after seeing what Jesse went through and my experiences working with youth in the social work program, I was like, you know what, maybe we could do something. Maybe we could try to create like an animated character that gets accepted into schools and at least try to help in some way, by giving, proper representation, almost like a superhero for the LGBTQ community with the Boy with the Rainbow Heart. So that's really, seeing what Jesse went through and everything like that, that's really what birthed this whole thing.
Yeah. And that next step. So one of the things that I just absolutely loved about this was that, like, and this was the point when I was like, yes, we absolutely have to talk about this and help get this out there, is the school initiative. And you've already donated hundreds of copies to various school districts, and you even prepared lesson plans that are Common Core aligned, which I think was just great. Was all of that, you kind of touched on this, but was all of that part of the plan from the start?
100%. Yeah, that was all intentional. From the get-go, we worked with my other sister, Melissa. She's a New York State teacher. My wife is a New York State teacher, and they had so many friends that when they caught wind of this, and they had LGBTQ teachers that were like totally down to help me with this book. So like I worked with Jessica and I worked with my wife and my other sister, and we wrote the book together. And we worked with these teachers on creating these lesson plans, because the whole point was to get this into school systems. We wanted this whole initiative to be related to creating something that's accessible in school districts around our area, and then it's spread even further. But so we made this book, we got it illustrated. We worked with another brother and sister illustrator. Coraline was our main illustrator. She's the sister, and it was an awesome experience. We illustrated it with this brother and sister in mind, because they specialized in 2D and 3D Disney art. So they have kind of built their names on creating characters that look like they're from Disney and relatable to kids. And that's what we wanted to accomplish with the boy. We wanted him to be a relatable figure to youth, and especially to LGBTQ youth. So yes, that's why we launched the Kickstarter to print the books. We printed a couple thousand, and honest to God, we would donate all of the books to the schools, but we have to make some money because we have to reorder books. Like
sure.
We only have about 150 books left of the couple thousand, but we've donated well over 500 books. We've gone to school districts. We've donated. We spoke to every single school psychologist in the Cleveland public school system, Cleveland, Ohio. So like each psychologist, we donated 80 books to each psychologist. We spoke at their professional development day, and they're going to use their lesson plans. And the same can be said for Buffalo Public, Rochester, Syracuse, Regional. And then, there's been, I would say, at least more than, I don't know, there's been so many schools that have taken in the book and the lesson plan. So yeah, that was the big reason for making this.
Yeah, we're looking at the proof that you all sent over here in the studio. And it does have a very Disney touch to the.
It's beautiful.
To the look, it is. It's
got really good artwork.
Yeah,
I love it.
Thank you. Coraline is our girl is just so tremendous.
I can't leave it on a rainy, sad picture. I have to flip to the end.
And now we can
there we go. That's better.
We can purchase this book.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in just a minute too.
Awesome.
Oh yes. So we cover queer news on the show, and I can remember several instances where LGBT-themed children's books caused an uproar in various communities. And front and center here in Florida is trans youth activist Jazz Jennings, who released a book called I Am Jazz. And we're talking protests from parents pulling their kids out of school to schools outright banning Jazz herself from coming to a school for a reading.
Yep.
And now the difference there, of course, is that her book is very pointedly about being transgender, where your story really has a broad message about diversity and isn't quite in your face with queer identities and language. And to be clear, I think there's a need for both.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But that said, when you approach schools about incorporating your book into their curriculum, are administrators or teachers resistant, reluctant? Do they, do they seem like they're sort of expecting something that parents are going to find controversial?
Every single principal or superintendent or head of psychology, whatever it might be, every single one is hesitant, is nervous, wants to make sure that they see the copy, wants to make sure that they see the lesson plans. But I will say that almost every single one, after they see the book, which was intentionally designed to be a little bit more, I guess, gentle in terms of the messaging, more broadly about acceptance and diversity. And obviously the boy represents the LGBTQ community with his rainbow heart. But once they saw the book, they read the book, they realized that it's a very subtle and gentle message. And they saw the lesson plans. I would say 95% of the administrators were totally behind the book donations. And we've had some great, because of those book donations, I've spoken at like 5 districts. I'm going to speak at a Orchard Park schools for their Superintendent's Day, which is all the superintendents around the area, to talk about the book and about the next book coming out. So it's like, it's been wonderful to see them embrace it, even though it was a little depressing to see their nervousness and apprehension early on.
Right, but again, like that shows that you are shifting the way that they're thinking about that, right? They're seeing this and going, oh, okay, that's not at all what I thought it was going to be. When they're presented with something again, they're going to remember that, and that will impact the way they look at that. I think that's great.
Well, I appreciate that, and I certainly hope that's the case, and I hope that, John Oliver and his book Through Conical Books, and, I hope that everything is working, right? Progress. We're always kind of moving forward, and even though change is slow, change is still change. And, yes, this book and those books and, My Two Mommies and A Normal Turtle and some of these other great books, I think they will slowly start to change the perception of our leadership and education.
Absolutely. I think we're in a moment here in the United States where so many people feel divided on various binaries, right? Politically, I mean, you have the highest office in the land espousing hateful xenophobic ideology, calling immigrants animals. The attacks on Muslim as a people rather than Islam as a bad ideology. We talk nearly every week about various states that are passing laws to legalize discrimination against LGBTQ people in things like adoption and public accommodation. And this is something that I'm very cognizant of with our own 8-year-old. There are conversations like this that are happening at adult levels, but children are so affected by all of it. And of course, their voice is often the one that's left out in all of it. So what I love about this story is that it does speak so broadly, where not just queer kids or kids of queer parents are going to connect with it, but immigrant kids of marginalized ethnic backgrounds. And the basic message is just, of love is really something that kids will easily identify and connect with.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Just everybody needs to be under one umbrella and love each other.
Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Black, white, gay, straight, tall, fat, skinny, happy, sad.
Oh my God.
Like, we all just need to be okay with each other.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. And it's funny, I'll share when I was working with these illustrators, my sister and I, and we originally made the book, we had to do so many edits because originally, and this is to our discredit, and we made the book with all white characters, as embarrassing as that is to admit. And after we made the book with all these white characters, my sister was like, something doesn't sit well with me with this. Like, this book is about diversity and acceptance, and yet everybody looks like they're from Sweden. And, so we had to go through this costly edit process where we substituted several characters on the pages to make sure that we represented Asian people and African American people, because it would be counterproductive to our whole mission to have the book be all with white people when we weren't making it a diverse population in the book itself. So that was a lesson that I learned, and it opened my eyes. And gosh, what a horrible mistake that would have been to make the book without correct representation.
We all have something to learn, though. There's never a limitation of growing. So
I agree.
And things can be missed, and you can just go on your way and not realize how unfair you're being while you're trying to be fair.
Yeah, good point.
So good for you, though. Good for you that you guys stopped and looked at it and said, you know what, we can even just make sure that it comes even that much further. That's beautiful. It's really a good thing. You guys did a really good thing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate that. That not only you recognized, hey, there's an opportunity to bring even more diversity to the book. Oops, we kind of fucked up a little bit, and let's fix it.
Yeah.
Right. But also that you're coming out here publicly and saying, hey, we fucked up, and we recognize that, and we fixed it, and we're not going to make that mistake again. To come out and have that be part of the story is super important.
I very much appreciate you saying that, and absolutely. And for the rest of the books in the series, we will 100% make sure that we have very sound representation across the board, for sure.
So speaking of the other books in the series, can you give us some spoilers, or do we have to wait for those to come out?
Actually, I spoke at this event last week or 2 weeks ago, and I shared the script. It's a rough draft script we have 2 more books coming out within the next couple of years. That's the goal. One of them is called Battling the Blues, which is about childhood depression. Basically, it snows in the town. The snow piles too high, covers the sun. And the boy, people in the town and the children in the town become depressed because depression is an LGBTQ issue for youth. And so the boy teaches the kids how to deal with depression. And so I'm still in the middle of making that script, and I'm trying to work with some school social workers and school psychologists on how they would teach kids to deal with depression. But the other book that's coming out, we're hoping that it comes out this fall or winter, is called Big Angry Red. And it's a book about bullying. Big Angry Red is a lead character who's, he's this big young man who comes into the town, and he's bullying everybody, and he's making kids feel sad and making people feel sad and angry. And the boy sees the bullying happen, and he basically, again, coaches he shows how to beat a bully and how to really kill a bully with kindness. And if you have another minute or two, I would love to share the rough draft script of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay?
Take us there.
Gosh, please.
Okay. So I'm going to jump into it. So it says, there once was a boy with a rainbow heart. He lived in the town of Shine. And as he grew up, every heart the boy touched lit up like the town's bright sign. But one afternoon, Angry Red came to town. He was a big angry man with a nasty mean frown. The town was afraid of Big Angry Red. He would stomp around town spewing fumes from his head. He teased the townspeople and made them all sad. He picked on the children, and their tears made him glad. Your face is so ugly, your head much too small. Your body's quite lengthy, and your legs are too tall. The townspeople felt hurt by Red's nasty ways. Big Red was a bully, creating fear with his gaze. Some people fought back and said mean words too, but Big Angry Red laughed in the face of those few. Most hid behind trees, while others left town. They feared Angry Red, and nearly all grew a frown. But the boy saw the teasing and knew just what to do. He would love Angry Red, let his rainbow shine through. He trusted his colors, despite his own fear. He knew that with love, Angry Red could see clear. When Big Angry Red came face to face with the boy, he laughed at his heart, and his words gave him joy. A heart, and his words gave him joy. But the boy stood calm, not fazed when he heard. He just smiled back and agreed with each word. Yes, Mr. Red, my heart is quite strange. My body is tiny and my hair sort of plain. My rainbow is small, my eyes are too green, but everyone's different. So what do you mean? Angry Red was confused and caught slightly off guard. How come this boy was not taking this hard? The big angry man grew a deep and dark red. Boy, did you listen? Did you hear what I said? The boy remained firm, never breaking a sweat. Yes, Red, I heard you. There's no need to fret. I'm not into fighting. I prefer love and joy. Angry Red seemed puzzled and just stared at the boy. When all of a sudden, Angry Red felt a change. He felt much less angry, and it felt a bit strange. His heart filled with love as color beamed out, and it lit up bright white as he let out a shout. I am sorry, kind people, I have let you all down. I am sorry my words turned your smiles to frowns. And not before long, the townspeople came back, and they all forgave Red for the love that he lacked. Red learned a lesson from the boy with the rays. Love and kindness is best on the darkest of days. And as the town embraced Red, the boy stood proud and tall. He stuck out his rainbow heart and preached love to all.
Oh, that's so great.
The
whole room has goosebumps right now.
I was on the verge of tears.
Yeah,
I'm like, bring on the feels.
So good.
The feelings.
Oh, so nice.
So I appreciate that so much. It's funny, when I was reading that to you, I missed the part where I skipped over the part where the Angry Red was teasing the boy. He basically said, give me 1 second. A heart that's a rainbow, you're the strangest of all. I've never seen such a heart or a rainbow so small. So that's the one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But I appreciate that, and we're hoping that we can get the same group of teachers that did the lesson plans for the first one to do the lesson plans for this bullying topic, and then we'll start to kick it into illustrations.
Awesome. So how can we help you expand the reach of this? I'm thinking like the school project. Like, do you want people to suggest schools to you directly so that you can keep the messaging consistent? Like, is there an organization that you're going to try to push this all through? How can we help you do this?
So I appreciate that very much. One organization that we've partnered with is GLSEN. And we've talked to the CEO, Dr. Eliza Byard, and she has been wonderful. And we donated 40 copies of the book and the lesson plans. So because they have 40 workshops across the United States where they go in and they work with educators to create a more inclusive environment for elementary education and middle school education. And so they've taken these into their workshops, and they're working across the United States with the Boy with the Rainbow Heart. Their lesson plans are on their website as a resource for educators. So any educator that wants the lesson plans, you can absolutely go to GLSEN's website, and it's right under their resource tab. But for anyone that wants to help, you are more than welcome to email me, and I will send you the PDF of the book if you can't afford it, because I know that a lot of educators are, they have to bear the burden of ordering pens and paper and books and all that jazz. So I'm more than happy to provide a free PDF.
Oh, that's great.
If they want to email me, my email is masows00@gmail.com. So that's masows00@gmail.com. And I'll give you the free lesson plans, the free electronic version of the book. But if you want to purchase the book, you're more than welcome to do so. You can go on Walmart, Barnes & Noble. You can go on Amazon. Amazon's usually like the easiest way. And any support, any school districts that want to talk, I'm all ears, and I'm open to donating. And we're just trying to do whatever we can to get this book in front of kids.
That's great. Yeah, we are partnered here on the show with IndieBound, which is an organization of independent booksellers.
Okay.
That we can. That we suggest books to folks with. So we'll have links on the show notes of this episode for that as well. Do you have a website set up yet, or is it just the best way to get a hold of you by email?
What's funny is we don't have a website. Actually, I just purchased theboywiththerainbowheart.com. And temporarily, that's just going to bring people to the Amazon page for the book. Mm-hmm. But we will be building a web page with that website address. It's just a matter of time. There's just, it's one step at a time. But you know what? We absolutely do need a web page, and I've been talking to my sister about that. So we do really need to get that going.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, we'll put links to all of those things on our show notes of this episode. And I just want to say, like, I really love the way that you've supported your sister, and you're doing more than doing more of what we need allies to do more of, right? Is to talk that, the supportiveness needs to come to a broader audience. And you're advocating for marginalized people of all stripes who feel different in a way. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you chatting with us tonight and putting this message out into the world at a time where it's really sorely needed.
Well, I appreciate all of you for giving me the opportunity to speak about it. It's really, I just trying to help kids the best way I can, making sure that, they have more diverse characters for them. I don't know if Disney or Pixar has an LGBTQ specific character, and we're really just trying to create that ourselves with the boy. And I one last thing before I wrap up. My mom and my dad and my whole family, but especially my mom and dad, are totally different people. I don't want people to get the wrong impression. They're like the sweetest, kindest people, and here's the thing: is they're human. They have evolved as humans. Their hearts have expanded by seeing what Jessica went through, and through this whole process, they've grown as people, just like many other people. And I guess my message is, for any kid or any person that has a family dynamic similar to what Jessica experienced, it does get better. And now my family, my mom and my dad, march with Jessica.
Oh, that's so great.
At gay pride parades, and my mom is like gung ho and supportive. And I guess that's my last message is, like, remain hopeful. People change. My family has changed, and you never know. Just keep hanging on.
That's great.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Will, for joining us tonight. And we'll be in touch. I want to talk to you again when the next book comes out. Absolutely.
You got it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. The Boy with the Rainbow Heart is available now at major booksellers. And if you order it through our special link, your purchase will support both Sarah Talk as well as independent booksellers. You can find The Boy with the Rainbow Heart and other books we've featured on the show at SarahTalk.com/books.
I want it.
When we come back, does the U.S. motto, "In God We Trust," bother you? It should. After the break, we'll dig into the history of our national motto and more.
Oh, boy.
You're listening to Sarah Talk.
I was feeling so alone.
I'm glad I asked for help. Whatever it is, ask for help.
If you're thinking about suicide or need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386.
Are you ready for your first card? As I look at the set I placed down for you, I see an interesting things rising. Some of it has to deal with love and money and changes, and hopefully they're going to be for the better. Now, your first card represents your situation. Maybe some problems you've been having. Maybe a little bit about yourself. Your first card is sorrow. This card is letting us know that there is some type of disruption in your life. Not that it's a big deal, but this card is giving off a strange vibe of anxiety. Actually, this card is warm in my hand. Oh, now caller, if you listen here, I'm seeing in the cards. Oh, yes, the 45 of mangoes. The 45 of mangoes card says you're going to go on to Patreon and subscribe, because there is nothing better than giving when receiving. What will you ask me? Find out now and I see for you. Call me now for a free tarot reading.
Sarah Talk is made possible by our patrons. We love our patrons. If you're not a Sarah Talk patron, you're missing out.
We should do a parody show for bathroom bills at the dog park. Like dogs fighting over which dog gets to pee where.
Or the owners.
Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable that my dog has to shit on the transgendered lawn. Fuck that.
Our Patreon fans get access to special patrons-only content, like this nearly 2-hour-long bonus episode where we break down Texas Senate Bill 6, the bathroom bill, with our special guest, Jake Vahaba.
My dog hunches over and takes a big runny shit. it's going to do it with other straight shit dogs. Which is the argument I hear.
Yes,
So.
yes, exactly what
My
I
dog knows what it is. And it may fuck other men dogs sometimes, and pillows and shit, and my kid. But I'm not having my dog shit next to other transgendered hump dogs.
Not only do our patrons get access to all previous patron-only specials for less than the price of a tall whatever Starbucks tries to pass off as a coffee, you'll get an ad-free version of the show, which often includes outtakes and extended segments. And of course, we'll give you a special shout-out on the show. Become a patron now for as little as $1 per episode. Go to patreon.com/SarahTalk today. That's patreon.com/SarahTalk.
Want to join the conversation or tell Sarah she's wrong? Email producer@SarahTalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. Now, more Sarah Talk.
Welcome back to Sarah Talk. I'm Sarah Austin. We're going to make an effort to try a Skype call, which we don't do very often because it's there's problems with the way this thing connects.
That ought to be fun.
So we'll see if this works. Tom, are you with us?
Tom, are you there?
Tom, have we got you?
Is this Tom from MySpace?
No. All right. So here's what we're going to do.
He's my friend.
Stand by. I have a backup number.
Stand by me. So, darling.
I've been by you.
Darling, stand.
Let's try this. I think I've got Tom. I can hear Tom, but he can't hear
You
us.
are the 100th caller.
Your call has been forwarded to
no, we've been sent to voicemail.
You got ghosted.
You got go.
Wah, wah. Tom, can you hear
The
us?
bottom one is the name of the server.
Live production.
Hello, Tom. I'm looking for you. If you'd call me back, that would be lovely.
What's a song with the name Tom in it? Is there one?
There's no.
No?
There's a song about it.
Now all I have is that song that the kids sung at the second grade show. Please don't put us in a can.
Oh, my Lord.
What?
Oh.
They were singing vegetables.
We're going to try this again.
Can. That sounds dangerous.
The number you have dialed is not in service.
Oh, that's
even worse.
Tom, do you pay your
Tom
bills?
has not paid his bill.
Tom,
Oh my
come
gosh.
on, Tom.
What are we doing?
No. I think I dialed the number wrong.
Oh, come on, Sarah.
Oh, shoot.
You
got
had
it.
one job, and that was to
Sarah,
do
you're
everything.
fired.
Hello.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hello, Tom.
Good. How are you?
Is this actually Tom?
Is that your real name?
Is this the real Tom?
I mean, if
This is
you're
the real
totally
Tom.
protecting your actual identity, you can say you're Tom, but
Yeah.
We're doing much better now that you're here, Tom.
That's good. I have that effect on people.
Attaboy, Tom.
There you go.
Bye.
All right, Tom Essel is the assistant director of the Original Motto Project, which advocates for the strict separation of church and state, as do we. They are on a mission to replace the diverse and discriminatory motto "In God We Trust" with the original United States motto "E Pluribus Unum," out of many one, or the first words of our Constitution, "We the People." So I gotta say, when I look at your mission, I think there's an interesting property of people who might fall into each of these positions, right? So you have one group who defer to a theistic authority, and another group that sort of sees a diverse group of people coming together to self-govern. And man, if that authoritarian versus democratic divide doesn't sum up where we are as a nation right now, I don't know what else does.
I couldn't possibly agree more. It's there's a really big push right now by the religious right to kind of take back America, and Trump is kind of the pinnacle of that in a way.
Yeah, I saw one writer describe the original motto as being the motto of the nation's founders, and "In God We Trust" being the motto of the founders of modern conservatism. I thought that was great.
That is a pretty good quote. And God We Trust actually goes back a little bit further than modern conservatism goes. It goes back to the 1860s during the Civil War. It was put on coinage by the Republican government that opposed the South. So, and then of course, it's in, I think, the fourth stanza of the national anthem, which everybody sings all the way to the fourth stanza. So
yeah, right. Yeah, nobody knows that there are four stanzas. And I'll put all my cards on the table here. Of course, I am #original motto. I think the sentiment of our original motto speaks deeply to all of the best qualities of our nation, where in God We Trust sounds a lot like the sort of theocracy that we were trying to avoid in the first place. And we talk about this from time to time whenever various news stories come up, but can you take us briefly through sort of that early timeline a little here from E Pluribus Unum to In God We Trust?
Sure. So E Pluribus Unum, like you said, is the original motto. It's on the U.S. seal. It was accepted by Continental Congress. I'll probably get my date wrong here, but I want to say 1777 or 76. An interesting point is that the original seal of the United States was the original design was actually Moses crossing the Red Sea, and with the motto underneath, opposition to tyrants is obedience to God. That was the original motto proposed, and Congress just outright rejected it because it was too religious. And so they settled on E Pluribus Unum, from many one, symbolizing the 13 colonies coming together. And that was just kind of acted as the de facto motto of the United States up until actually the 1950s. So it's almost 200 years of this being the de facto motto. In God We Trust is, as I said previously, it was put on coinage during the Civil War, but it was never an official motto. It was just kind of something people said. It wasn't until the Cold War era and the Red Scare and everybody being afraid of the godless communists that In God We Trust was adopted as the national motto.
Right. And so between the time of the Red Scare in the 40s and 50s and now, and also I would add the changes in the Pledge of Allegiance too, where we're seeing a lot of people who are like, respect the flag, respect the pledge, respect the anthem, right? And then you show them the original Pledge of Allegiance, which is like half the text of the current one, and they're like,
it's my heritage.
And written by a Baptist, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in the time from then to now, we've seen In God We Trust all over the damn place, but particularly troubling is when we see that it's attached to secular government things, like it's on our money. More and more police departments are putting in decals on their squad cars, and I've seen recent stories too of local city councils being challenged for having like In God We Trust signs like in the chamber, and now we're trying to put it in our schools. So before we get into some of those individual things, though, let's talk about the question of constitutionality of displaying this phrase in public, government properties, and we'll come back to money and some of that other in a minute.
Okay. Do you have a specific question?
Well, so right. So what is the Constitution, when you consider In God We Trust, is that a religious enough message for it to, trigger the Establishment Clause, or how does that play out when you consider it in the Constitution?
Well, I think it's blatantly obvious that it's a religious phrase. Its history is a religious, specifically Christian connotation. That's why it was put on money during the Civil War, was to show that God, the Christian God, was on the side of the North, not the South. It differentiates us from the godless communists who rejected Christianity. And so its own history, it's blatantly obvious that it's a Christian phrase. And even if it's not, it's still a obviously religious phrase. And so obviously the position that we take at the Regional Model Project is that the phrase is innately religious and therefore it violates the Establishment Clause. However, the courts have ruled over and over again that it in fact does not, and that it constitutes what's known as ceremonial deism, which means just through repetition, it's kind of lost its religious meaning. So therefore, it doesn't count.
Right. The court case in the 70s in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I'll read a quote from that. It is quite obvious that the national motto and the slogan on coinage and currency, "In God We Trust," has nothing whatsoever to do with the establishment of religion. Its use is of a patriotic or ceremonial character and bears no true resemblance to a governmental sponsorship of a religious exercise. Except, then there's all of us non-deists, too. Right. If it's deism, great. But there's a lot of non-deists too.
Absolutely, and it's the government promoting. It is promoting a religious exercise. It's promoting the belief in God, and so that in and of itself is a religious exercise. If it's not, then every church is not religious. So
right.
But yeah, so that's really that court case is really, that's the thorn in our side. That makes it. And I'm sure you've read about Michael Newdow. For those not familiar, Michael Newdow is the person who he's sued 2 or 3 times over the motto. He's got a court case going on right now. It keeps getting dismissed for various reasons. That's the thorn in his side as well, that this phrase has been deemed by the powers that be as non-religious, when it very blatantly is. And the people who support it, it's very clear if you speak to them, they see it as a religious phrase.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And nowhere clearer is that than you say, okay, well, how would you feel if, because it is capital G God, how would you feel if we changed it to "In Allah We Trust"? Oh, shit. No, we can't do that. No, that would be, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, that's terrorism. We can't. That would be state sponsoring.
Not in my America.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like I said, it's very clear that it's a very Christian, 1950s white America phrase.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about the Original Motto Project then. How did this get started?
So the Original Motto Project was started in 2015 by our national director, Robert Ray. And it was originally in response to city councils trying to put up "In God We Trust" in various locations throughout the country. So he just kind of coordinated with other activist groups. I came on board a little bit later in 2015 when it started blowing up on police cars, or especially sheriffs. It's mostly sheriffs, not police, that have been doing this. And there was kind of a funding reason for that. But that's where I came on board, and it really took off for quite a while. It was spreading like wildfire with these sheriff's departments putting the phrase on there, and then when we would challenge it, more often than not we were ignored, blocked. But we would several times we were told to leave the country. Our outreach coordinator at the time challenged the sheriff in Greene County, Missouri, over this, and was specifically told to leave America if he didn't like it. So that really goes to show the kind of power that this phrase has for people. So I think that's really important to get across, as it's not just a motto, it's not just words. Like, it does mean something to people. And so when they challenge it, they can get quite visceral.
Words have meaning. Yes.
Surprise. God. Words have meaning.
So I want to kind of jump track a little bit here. But I'll say first that you have a map on your website where you've kind of tracked these occurrences of like citizen reporting. Hey, my police department, my sheriff's department started slapping decals on their cars. So you can look at that on a map on originalmotto.us.
Yes, and I think there's over 300 of them right now. Okay. Robert's the one who actually updates that. He does a great job. I don't know how to do that. So,
so let's get back to the money for a minute. You also have a program called the Great Stamp Out, which encourages people to cover up In God We Trust on paper currency. And you also offer a stamp for sale that has the original motto on it. Talk a little bit about that. Do you get a lot of pushback about, isn't that defacing money and is that legal? Do you hear a lot of that?
we do. We get that quite often, especially from people who want to participate but are nervous about it. It is most definitely not illegal to stamp the money, especially because it's a legitimate form of political protest. The only time it's illegal is if you damage the money so that it cannot be circulated anymore. So if you were to protest by lighting it on fire, that would be something that would be illegal. However, simply putting a stamp over top of In God We Trust that says E Pluribus Unum in no way makes it where you can't use the money.
Right.
Sometimes we have problems with vending machines, but those aren't government operated, so we don't care.
The bank will still accept it. It's good.
If somebody doesn't get their Fritos, oh well.
So I happen to love Fritos, so I'd be pretty upset. But
I like Cheetos.
As long as it's not Funyuns.
Oh yeah, those are the worst. But yeah, so we do get that a lot. There's actually a post somewhere on our website. I wrote it, years ago, kind of breaking down why this is not illegal. Yes, you can do it. Of course, you can go to our website and purchase the stamp. And we get some of those funds that come back to us. It helps kind of keep us running. So it's a good way to support us.
So we're trying to get you out of here on time. Talk about the Project Blitz. So I knew that all of this recent wave of stuff was happening, but I didn't realize that it had a formal name.
Yeah, so Project Blitz is a project by the Congressional Prayer Caucus, and the purpose of it is to promote Judeo-Christian values in America. There are it's a three-tiered system, and each tier is a different type of legislation, and the tier is based on how much resistance it's likely to receive. So things like the National Motto Display Act, which is what we've seen in schools just go like wildfire lately, where they're requiring the national motto be displayed in schools. Those are considered Category 1 legislation, because they're likely to pass and not likely to garner any significant resistance.
Okay.
So how much Project Blitz itself is behind a lot of the mottos being displayed in schools, that we're not sure about. It's kind of hard to find out that, especially because, the various groups, they all talk amongst each other, so it may be more of an indirect. But there's definitely a concentrated, organized effort to do this, and it goes all the way up to Category 3 stuff, which is like requiring Bible readings and things like that.
Lord.
Yeah.
Actually,
Indeed.
We're recording next week's show immediately after this, and there are some news stories in that of schools that are getting their wrists slapped for making kids read the Bible,
making children read horror stories.
Yes,
in no way,
there's awful stuff in there. That's all I'm saying.
In no way does that surprise me.
So
I used to live in southern Missouri, so I encountered that a lot.
Oh, people still live there?
They do.
He said used to, so
he was smart. He was smart.
To our listeners across the Bible Belt in the South, it's possible to get out. There's a message of hope here.
The road doesn't end at your county line, folks.
Oh my God. Okay,
I do kind of miss it, honestly, because I was kind of like right in the thick of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I do kind of miss it, but then I don't.
So what are some things that we can do to help resist this stuff?
Okay, so the big thing is this requires a lot of local activism. This isn't something that's going to be decided on the national level anytime soon. Actually, for the Original Motto Project, we kind of oppose lawsuits, things of that nature, because they haven't been effective, and they're kind of a waste of time.
Right.
No offense to Michael Newdow, but they're kind of a waste of time.
Well, when you have legal precedent, that the legal precedent that we have, that makes it difficult.
Right. So the big thing is being involved in your community and talking to your local legislators. This is things that happen at the local level, school boards, city councils, sheriff's departments. These are local government, and they're all elected, so that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
We were actually able in Springfield, Missouri, which is where I lived. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw!
The city council was proposing to put "In God We Trust" up in city council chambers, and the secular community came together, and we just absolutely crushed it, and it never passed. They got so worried about the uproar that we were causing that they backed down. So that's really the way to do this, is to be involved locally. That's not always possible, and that's just kind of reality.
Sure.
If there's an atheist group in southern Arkansas and there's 3 people in it, there's not much they're going to be able to do, especially in an area where they're not going to have religious allies. Seeking out religious allies is also really important for this, to show that it's not a phrase that just offends atheists, it offends religious people. Southern Baptists are usually really good, Unitarians, even Jehovah's Witnesses. So seeking out those allies where you can find them. And then, those are really the two main things. And then, of course, helping to support organizations like the wonderful Original Motto Project that kind of keeps an eye on these things, and we try to squash them as they pop up.
Yeah. Now, you guys have a Patreon. Our listeners are familiar with Patreon. We use that too. So we will include links to both the Original Motto Project website and to your Patreon directly too.
Awesome. Yeah. Hop on there, show us some support. It's the big thing is that the religious right is well funded and well organized.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be as well organized as we want, but if we're not well funded, we're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the reality of it. And I really encourage the listeners to look up Project Blitz. And it's a 116-page document, but it's like the first 10 pages are the really, really important part, to look over that and see what the religious right is trying to do. And they're doing it. They're very effective, and they have a battle plan, and they have the funding. So look over that, and when you're considering whether or not to donate to stuff like the Original Motto Project.
Yeah, we'll get a hold of that link and share it in our circles too.
Okay.
That's interesting. All right. Hey, we need to let Tom get to the pet store because his cat's hungry and hasn't eaten in a day. So
You gotta feed
that kitty cat.
But
yes.
But Tom, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight, and for all the work that you guys are doing to help keep our government representative of all the people. I appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome, and we're happy to do it.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom. You have a good night.
Bye, Tom.
You too.
Bye, Tom.
Bye.
Tell your cat I said hi.
Tom Essel is the assistant director of the Original Motto Project. Learn more and get involved at originalmotto.us. Now, while we're talking about church-state entanglements, particularly in public schools, I want to read a press release from the Freedom from Religion Foundation about a law in Louisiana that just passed that endorses school employees participating in prayer with students. On Friday, May 18th, Louisiana passed a bill that openly encourages public school teachers and coaches to participate in prayers with their students. The original version of the bill was so blatantly unconstitutional that even far-right religious liberty law firms openly warned state lawmakers that the bill, quote, directly contradicts the U.S. Supreme Court and lower court precedent on the issue, and that, quote, there is a zero chance Senate Bill 512 would survive on an inevitable court challenge. The Freedom from Religion Foundation cautions Louisiana public school districts that the final version of SB 512 will still encourage unconstitutional behavior. The passed bill states that public school employees may bow their head in deference and respect when their students engage in student-initiated and student-led prayer. Now, and that's one of those things that we make clear the distinction that nobody's trying to take prayer out of schools. If you want to pray before your test, if you and your friends want to get together, after lunch, and that is perfectly acceptable.
Circle jerk.
But
that's the wrong kind of circle,
that's a
Michael.
whole different thing.
That's
Yeah,
another thing.
that's a different group of
What kind
kids.
of prayers were you staying in school?
That's our weekend circle.
That's after a few drinks.
But when an adult in a school capacity gets involved, that's when it becomes a problem. Okay, back to the press release.
Oh my god. Go to the corner, Michael.
Especially given its history, there is no question that this bill is intended to encourage teachers to participate in prayers with their students. To a student, a teacher standing in a prayer circle with other students and bowing a head during a prayer appears to be participating in the prayer. If a teacher bows his or her head, and I want to call them out, I'm going to send them an email, Freedom from Religion Foundation, if you're listening. His or her is very binary speak language. And you could have said, if a teacher bows their head.
Right, yeah.
Calling you out. If a teacher bows their head during a Christian student prayer, but not during students delivering a prayer for a minority religion, the teacher sends a message of endorsing the Christian prayer. This is why the Constitution and federal courts demand that public school employees refrain from participating in student prayers in any way. Many Louisiana teachers will see this new law as an excuse to participate in student prayers, which FFRF fears is the intent of lawmakers and, because it is illegal, exposes the school districts to serious legal and financial liability. Remaining quiet and respectful during student prayers has, of course, always been legally permissible, as we mentioned earlier. But this bill sends teachers and coaches a message that they can quietly participate, which violates legal precedent. Freedom from Religion Foundation is committed to vigorously defending the right of public school students to a secular public school system. Now, when I was in high school...
Oh my God, that's a long time ago.
I created a lunchtime Bible study group, and we would meet... Oh, yeah.
There are better things to do at lunch. What's wrong with you?
I was in it, man. I was in it.
Cookies,
and
chocolate milk.
And we would meet up after we all ate lunch, or we would eat lunch in the of all people, the very religious science teacher donated her room for our cause. Mm-hmm. And I studied the legal precedent and what my rights were as a student, and I learned a lot about that when I was a teenager on the other side of the issue. And now I see it in a very different light. But we definitely did the, meet me at the flagpole prayer thing. And
I'm glad you specified.
Meet me at the pole.
That was Michael's school.
Right. I know in...
3 o'clock, the pole.
In present company, I have to be careful. Oh, man.
Watch out. You just dropped your unicorn on the floor.
As long as I don't knock my drink over, I'll be fine. In another press release from the Freedom from Religion Foundation... What, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, on the subject of prayer, Dan, maybe you should pray about it.
Dan wants my hair down again. It is so damn hot in this room. I can't
Dan,
stand it.
We're talking about taking off clothes, not our hair down.
Okay, in another press release from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, a concerned local parent reported that earlier this month, Johnson County Westside Elementary School in Arkansas, of course, Arkansas, allowed the Gideons into classrooms during the school day to distribute Bibles to students.
Oh, hell no.
Condoms, not Bibles.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Condoms. An air freshener.
The Freedom from Religion...
Arkansas air freshener.
Yeah. The Freedom from Religion Foundation has, of course, written to the district to warn federal courts have held the distribution of Bibles to students at public schools to violate the First Amendment's Establishment Clause. So, who are the Gideons? Let's go to church.
I got a word from you. I got a word of knowledge, a word of prophecy.
Jesus.
That God is going to put a burning. God's going to put a cancer in the butthole of every sodomite.
This is a time that our Judeo-Christian values are attacked.
It is not all that difficult to determine the difference between a male and a female.
I'm going to preach against a sodomite
I feel like he's
maker,
gonna touch
Barack
me after
Hussein
service in all the
Obama,
wrong
the son of
places.
Satan. I'm going to become a sodomite slayer.
There hasn't been one nation in the history of the world that has openly embraced homosexual lifestyle and begun to practice the homosexual lifestyle that has
I don't
endured.
like his voice.
Every one of them has gone down.
I don't like that man's voice. I feel like he would
Cancer in your butthole. butthole.
No, I feel like he would Bill Cosby me and touch me in
he
places.
might.
I don't. Mm-mm.
No,
Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Jesus, a la Oprah.
Okay,
Maxine.
guys, that's not the story. That's just the intro to the story.
Exactly.
Catch up.
So
scary.
So the Gideons, according to their website, the Gideons International is an association of Christian business and professional men and their wives. There's plenty of opportunity for the bell, so keep that close by.
All right, good.
Stop.
Butthole.
Butthole.
An association of Christian business and professional men and their wives, it says, because, misogynist patriarchy, dedicated to telling people about Jesus through associating together for service, sharing personal testimony, and by providing Bibles and New Testaments. While we are often recognized for our work with hotels, we also place and distribute scriptures in strategic locations so they are available to those who want them, as well as to those who may not know they need them.
Oh,
that doesn't sound rapey.
So
no, it doesn't sound rapey at all.
They are a non-profit, tax-exempt, proselytizing evangelical Christian association. And yes, these are the people who leave Bibles in the nightstands at the hotel. But you may not know they also leave their literature at every...
That was
That was
clever.
pretty good.
Thank you.
I
At
liked
every
it.
prison, military base, school, and hospital they can find.
Sure they do.
The Gideons believe that the Bible is the inspired, infallible, inerrant Word of God and that Jesus Christ is the eternal Son of God. In 1898, two traveling salesmen, John Nicholson and Samuel Hill, met at a hotel in Wisconsin. As the prophecy foretold, there was no more room at the inn, and so they slept outside in the stable. No, I'm just kidding. They
I bet
actually
they were in
shared
the stable.
They actually shared the last available room.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they did.
History insists it was a double room, but hey, what happens when you're out selling vacuum cleaners on the road stays on the road. During pillow talk, they discovered they had common faith and decided to have their evening devotions together. During that prayer time, they felt called to create an evangelical association for other lonely, traveling Christian businessmen.
I love a good devotion.
The following year, they put out the call for men who were interested in joining, and much like getting listeners to share your podcast episodes, only one person showed up.
Aw, sausage fest fail.
Oh my god.
Will Knights. He suggested the name Gideon for the Old Testament judge who led a small band of men to defeat a much larger army. Never give up, kids. That's the moral of this story. Their group slowly grew and was still comprised mainly of men who traveled for work and stayed in hotels, wink, wink.
Big shock.
And so in 1908, they came up with the idea of providing Bibles to hotels so that traveling Gideons would have one at the ready anywhere they stayed, because I guess carrying your own... Were they made of stone tablets back then that you couldn't carry around with you? I don't know. But also, they could be used by other guests staying in the rooms. Today, they claim more than 270,000 Gideons and auxiliary members. Auxiliary members, that's the name for women who can't become actual Gideons because it's a no girls allowed He-Man woman haters club.
God.
It's also called a circle jerk.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Operating in over 200 countries, territories, and possessions around the world. And they have placed and distributed more than 2 billion Bibles and New Testaments around the world.
That's a lot of paper.
It is, right?
A lot of dead trees.
They claim that today,
Killers.
on average, over 1 million Bibles and New Testaments are distributed every 4 days.
That's a lot of
1 million Bibles.
Now, I'm going to need you to save some trees while you're saving souls.
Right?
Pay a bill. Pay some taxes.
And while I might be tempted to show up at a local hotel with an armful of Qurans or Satanic Temple literature, and I am,
This lady.
and I am, there may be some change on the horizon. Hoteliers aren't required to accept or place any religious materials, and yet you've probably come to expect to find a Bible and perhaps even a Book of Mormon in the nightstand when you travel. Yes. Now, if you'll all please rise and turn to page 666 in your hymnal, we're going to sing "A Mighty Fortress Is Our Lodge."
I love a good lodge.
My feet hurt. I'm not getting up.
A 2016 article in the Los Angeles Times talks about Marriott International, the world's largest hotel company, which does supply a Bible and a Book of Mormon in most of its hotels. However, the article was highlighting the new Moxie Hotel in San Diego, saying that Marriott had, quote, decided that no religious materials should be offered at two of its newest millennial-oriented hotel brands, Moxie and Edison. Marriott spokesperson Felicia Farrar-McLemore said, it's because the religious books don't fit the personality of the brands. And the people said, amen.
Yes, Felicia.
And there's good research to back this up. A major Pew Research survey center survey. God, I can't fucking talk tonight. I've turned into a babbling idiot.
Oh my God!
Let me have another drink.
Have another drink. Here, take one of the. Oh God, hit me back.
Michael, get your balls in order.
Keep your balls over there.
Why is mine?
Okay.
This is mine. What?
I like this silver one.
A major Pew Research Center survey published in 2015 found that millennials, defined as Americans born between 1981 and 1996, are increasingly identifying themselves as nuns, saying they are atheists or agnostics, and that their religion is nothing in particular.
The balls just hit me in the face.
When you said none, I was like, I don't really consider myself a bride of Christ.
Brandon and I are going to have a show together now. You two can go.
Freaking plummeted me. I got plummeted.
Sarah, you're the one that put the toys in the studio.
The study showed overall 35% of millennials are religiously unaffiliated, overshadowing those who identify as evangelical Protestant at 21%, Catholics at 16%, and mainline Protestants at 11%. The 35% of millennials who do not identify with a religion is double the share of unaffiliated baby boomers at 17%, and so religiosity is highest among the baby boomers and the silent generation. And I have to give a shout out here to my friend Josh, who is one of the most respectful people I've ever disagreed with. We have some really great conversations. Like, he's one of these guys that we can just talk about, hot topics, and we definitely come down on different sides of many issues. This is not necessarily one of them. But we have really good conversations. And during one of those conversations, I was kind of lamenting the state of things, and he that equality is not moving as fast as I want it to, and some of this progressive movement, I want it to happen faster, damn it. And he reminded me that a lot of this backward thinking is still oozing from the oldest generations. And while I don't wish death upon anyone, there is a new era on the horizon as the silence and the baby boomers leave us. It's the facts of the matter. As the older generations...
It's a circle of life.
As going to a better place.
As the older generations leave us and are unable to vote for garbage laws like we talk about every week...
Or read or drive or walk or shit on their own.
Things are going to get more progressive. Right? And that's not to say that they're all that bad, right? We often think of the older generations as being much more religious. But the same Pew Research study showed that older generations have also grown somewhat more religiously unaffiliated in recent years, to a lesser degree, of course. Let's go back to the hotel and have a drink. Actually, I'm going to have another drink. You guys are driving me nuts.
Don't hit me with that again.
Eric says there's two different shows going on, SarahTalk
there are,
and the Big
and you're
Balls
driving
show.
me nuts.
This show is about diversity.
It's not me.
Uh-oh, you turn your mic off.
You're about to get the button.
A recent survey by hospitality analytics company STR found that the percentage of hotels that offer religious materials in rooms has dropped significantly over the last decade. From 95%, it used to be 95% of hotels had Bibles in the rooms.
Yeah.
In 2006 to 48% in 2016.
Oh, wow.
Industry experts say the change is an effort to appeal to younger American travelers who are less devout than their parents and grandparents, but also to avoid offending international travelers who may be Muslim or Buddhist, for example. Makes sense? Still, despite the odds, Gideon International spends around $100 million a year on the Bible distribution program.
What?
Mm-hmm.
They could be spending a whole lot.
Remember, nonprofit, tax-exempt organization.
But they
spend
should
that money on like feeding children or
they
homeless.
Should be doing something for the communities that they're in, not.
They're just spending it on
not killing trees.
Not killing trees. Yeah, exactly. Because nobody's reading those stupid Bibles.
They're just sitting there. I remember.
No, you can get the Bible on a Kindle now.
Anybody who has a Bible,
right? Yeah.
Anybody who has a Bible and actually reads their Bible wants to read their Bible. I've never heard of anybody like falling into the, I found Jesus in the Motel 8 one late night after
Motel 8.
Like,
you just invented a new.
It's not like
you just
like it's not like a
between...
pen. Like, can I borrow your pen? Let me borrow your Bible.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I have my Bibles, even though I don't necessarily agree with them.
Yes, plural. Plural.
Why do you need several Bibles?
Well, they're the same Bible, but one is the version that I grew up reading, and this is the one that they have edited. So now
they change,
Yeah.
So you still read them?
How do you edit the word?
Exactly,
never
but
mind.
that's the point.
Let me go back to my minority corner on the other side of the train tracks.
When I was a devout Bible reader, I wanted my personal Bible. It had my
because then you're highlighting, you make your little notes.
Sure,
like, God is gonna love me.
I'm not gonna pick up a Bible out of a hotel that somebody probably
did things to and on and around.
Page to smoke some weed out of.
Right?
Use the spine
Revelation
to get
is
their
missing.
I guess before snorting.
Talking about smoking the word of God.
I need to roll this page of Revelation into.
Sounds like a lot of experience in the room right now.
Oh man.
Okay.
You say experience, I say expertise.
You really could with these pages, though.
Oh, I know.
Are they good? They burn nice?
These are nice paper pages.
Oh, let's see. Here, let's open them up.
Feel it.
Ooh, like velvet.
Jesus.
No, like feel that. Like that's a good.
That's. Here, take a touch.
You could roll a. You could roll a nice one.
It feels so smooth on my fingers.
Can you feel the crest?
I do. I feel the spirit.
Feel the crack.
Nope. That's just the leg.
That's just.
I put my hand on many cracks. That one's a little dry.
Okay. All right. Wind it up here. So now that you've completely forgotten that this organization is trying to give Bibles to school children in Arkansas.
Oh fuck, that was what we were starting.
Let's give them history books that are up to date.
Let's close the bacteria-ridden Bellagio bedside Bible and put an end to this edition of Let's Go to Church.
Jesus, hallelujah.
The Lord be with you.
And always with you.
Thank you.
Just not in a dark alley, because we tried that once and
didn't work.
Okay, let's wrap this thing up because we've got a whole other show to do.
Give me a condom, I'll wrap it up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get it.
I'm gonna turn.
It's from Jesus.
I'm gonna have to shut you guys down so that I can do the outro, or we'll never end this show.
Sarah, I'm gonna get you a bottle of Xanax.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
I need it.
Don't front her
Tonight I definitely do. I've been a grumpy bitch all
We'll just
afternoon.
crush them up and then we'll use the Bible to get the lines in order.
I do have a pill crusher.
The Lord
there you
says,
go.
order
That's
your
easy.
steps.
I usually have my
I know.
He does. Order your steps.
What?
I got excited.
I know you do.
The original motto project is challenging us to consider the real message of our national motto and champion a more inclusive message. Thanks again to Tom Essel for taking us all to school tonight without a Bible. Appreciate that. Learn more at originalmotto.us. And thanks again to Will Mason. Order your copy of The Boy with the Rainbow Heart through our special link, and your purchase will help support the show as well. Again, you can find this and other books we've recently featured at SarahTalk.com/books. We want to thank our wonderful patrons over at Patreon.com/SarahTalk. And we want to welcome our newest patron this week, I Never Saw That podcast.
Very exciting.
We appreciate you joining us on this, whatever this is that we do.
Well,
it's a journey.
Next week, no live show.
No
live show. So don't show up next week.
Don't show up. We won't be here.
Don't come next week. You can be late.
Michael,
I come every week.
Yeah, you do.
Michael,
Every day.
Brandon, thank you guys for coming in and sticking around for part 2 of this. If now the next part of the show will be, I'm sure, a whole lot more hijinks than this one was. This was I tried.
This was very scripted
to make it very serious.
It was
and we
very
had
serious.
interviews.
Never serious.
Right.
I've
we had
never
interviews.
stayed still for so long.
Well, I'm sorry. Hopefully the next week's show then will be a little more light. All right.
Okay.
Did she just call us fat?
I think she did.
What?
Mine will, because
No.
I'm like on a diet and I'm losing some weight, but
Rude.
Tuesday.
not in the next 5 minutes. Maybe.
Okay.
Next week.
Right?
Next week.
Let's all go throw up.
Next week, no live show. There will be a pre-recorded show, but we will be on vacation, and one lucky listener has been assigned to check in on our house and water the plants. If that's you, don't fucking touch the pickles in the fridge. We'll see you next week. You've been listening to Sarah Talk.
Sarah Talk is made possible by listener support. Visit patreon.com/SarahTalk to become a patron and help keep this program going. Contact Sarah and Company by email at producer@SarahTalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. And follow us on social media, Facebook.com/SarahTalkRadio and on Twitter @SarahTalkRadio. Sarah Talk is a production of Sarah Austin Media.